Good evening and welcome to the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas G. Viewers, the flames and the fury have drawn a deep wedge dividing the world into two blocks. On one hand, you have President Donald Trump, who has unleashed Operation Epic Fury in Israel, joining in with its roaring lion. On the other hand is Iran, which is facing a severe multi-front and intensifying assault from the combined U.S. and Israel military operations, killing its supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. But the killing of Khamenei was just the beginning. The last 24 hours were full of Iran's retaliatory strikes on U.S. assets in the Gulf. Iran's missiles taking out U.S. missiles and bases, U.S. military bases, I beg your pardon, in the Gulf, and striking at the heart of global oil supply chains. To talk about this, joining me at the moment is Oren Marmenstein, who is, of course, a spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. Oren Marmenstein, let me begin by asking you, of course, thanks for joining us here at Times Now, by the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and a large part of the Iranian leadership, have you created a situation which has embroiled the entire region into conflict?
Good evening. It's good to be on the show.
Likewise.
What we're witnessing right now is the aggression of the Iranian regime. We are talking about a regime, let's remind all the viewers, that just in recent weeks was massacring thousands of their own civilians. They were shooting people on the street. And this aggression is now projected all over the region. Yesterday, I can share with you and with the viewers, I visited the city, Israeli city called Bet Shemesh. I've seen gruesome pictures. 9 civilians were murdered by ballistic missiles fired by the Iranian regime. But they are not only going after us, they are attacking Arab countries. 8 different countries in the region were fired at, attacked by the Iranian regime, unprovoked. And you've seen the reports that their attacks go all the way to Europe. So this is a menace, this is a threat, not only to Israel,
right,
not only to the Middle East, but to the entire world.
Okay, but what really are we talking about as the key objective? If you're saying that it's because they were attacking, the civilians who were protesting peacefully, and we've heard the United States in the past say that the key objective is regime change. This evening, we heard the United States Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, come out and say that regime change is not the objective, but neutralizing the nuclear weapons are.
I can share with you the Israeli perspective on this. And the objective of this operation is very clear: to remove this threat. And as I said, this is a threat to Israel, to the United States of America, to the Middle East, to Europe, and to the entire world. And this is what we're doing. And yes, what is happening, the course of action and the operation taking place will create the conditions that will enable the Iranian people to free themselves.
So, but the question, how will it happen unless, of course, there is some kind of regime change is a big question. And if it is indeed regime change, you think you'll have to ensure that it happens from within, Iran itself, because we've seen mixed reactions coming in from Iran.
So, you talked about scenes coming from Iran. Like I said, there were terrible scenes coming out of Iran, and there were body bags that were coming out of Iran because of those brutal operations that they were carrying out against their own people. The brutal shooting, the brutal massacring of their own people. So I think there is a lot of hate, a lot of resentment towards this brutal regime within Iran. And what we're doing, we're removing the threats that is projected towards the entire region.
Right. And do you think that other countries such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, you mentioned, of course, the countries that have been attacked unprovoked, including even Oman, that was actually negotiating between the United States as well as Iran. Do you think that they will have a more pronounced sort of participation in coming days?
It's for them to decide. But what I can tell you, and in this I'm certain, that we will finish the job. This operation will be concluded successfully. We won't leave this threat, this menace, half-baked. We won't leave it as is to continue project not only firing those ballistic missiles and spreading terror and violence all over the region. They are also fueling, arming, and pushing forward terror proxies all over the region.
Right.
And this will be stopped again.
My last question, Israel has hit back at Hezbollah in Lebanon. Do you foresee the possibility of a ground invasion in Lebanon, something that Israel has done in the past?
I think you've seen the reports coming from Israel on this. And the bottom line is we will make sure and we'll do everything needed to make sure that our citizens in the north part of Israel, in the southern part of Israel, and in the entire country are safe. Basically, this is not too much to ask.
Right.
Exactly like you would ask and you would hope and you would do everything needed to make sure that Indians are safe, Indian families are safe. This is basically what we're asking for ourselves, to make sure that our families are safe.
Right, and President Trump has come out to say that he believes that this is a war that will not end for another 4 to 5 weeks. What can we expect in these 4 to 5 weeks in your estimation?
So in terms of duration, Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear, and he said, whatever time it takes, we will carry out the job and we will finish the job. So I think it's hard to tell the exact time period, but it's very clear to say that this will be completed in a successful way.
All right, Oren Mamasen, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us here on Times Now and breaking this down from the Israel perspective of what to expect from the fighting that is, of course, expected to continue for 4 to 5 weeks if you go by what President Trump says. What really will be the impact of the entire Middle Eastern region where it has completely impacted life, including, of course, multiple ways from air travel to the kind of strikes that we've seen, including in civilian areas. Thank you so much for joining us with your perspective, Oren.
Thank you.
All right, and this is, of course, the reaction coming in from U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth earlier this evening, where he detailed what the U.S.'s offensive really means and what their plans are in coming days. Listen in.
We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it. Their war on Americans has become our retribution against their Ayatollah and his death cult. This is not a so-called regime change war. But the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons.
All right, there's a big breaking update coming in. Qatar says it has shot down 2 Iranian fighter jets. That's the latest update coming in from Qatar. Let's quickly get my colleague Mayank, who's with us for more on this. Mayank, this is a big escalation because it's now Qatar, which has not as such been part of any offensive, but it says that it has shot down 2 Iranian jets. Can you take us through the circumstances? Were they shot down in defense? What really transpired and what jets were they?
So it becomes significant because another country has joined in the entire aspect of offensive now. So another flank has been opened as far as Iran is concerned. And using Air Force for not only as air defense, and there must be multi-layer defenses actually. If we get to know that not only ballistic missiles have been used, but also drones were used. So the Qatar air defenses, which are multi-layered, are hitting down not only from drones to the ballistic missiles, which are very important delivery vehicles, which can deliver not only the conventional ordnance, but also nuclear, biological, and chemical. So what we see is actually it's another flank which has opened for at least Iran. And also the offensive has been divided. If you see, as of now, the air forces from not only Israel and U.S. were coming in for offensive, but now Qatar has also joined.
Absolutely.
We have to also see that maybe other countries also might join if it continues.
Well, those countries have certainly been pounded quite mercilessly by Iran over the last 48 hours, so would not be surprising if they actually do that. In any event, of course, they have been defending themselves with the offensive coming in from Iran. Thanks so much, Mayank, for that quick update. But what is Iran saying? Iran has made it extremely clear that they will not back down yet. Here's what Iran's security chief has said, and this is the statement coming in. They say, as in the past 300 years, Iran didn't start this war. This is Ali Larjani, who's Iran's security chief. He says, not engaged in any attacks except in self-defense. They also say that we'll fiercely defend ourselves and our civilization. We'll make enemies regret their miscalculation. So this is the point of view coming in from Iran at this point of time. Let me quickly open this up and take it across to our guests who are with us. With us is Colonel Shailendra Singh, who is a defense expert with us. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey is a defense expert. Also with us is Colonel Mahesh Ramchandran, defense expert. Let me come across to you first. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, what are we to make of what really is transpiring at this point of time? Hardening of positions, but it appears that Iran has opened up far too many fronts than it can handle, if you go by the latest news coming in.
So I think, firstly, this was a grave strategic mistake which they did. There was a coalition of unwilling, at least in open domain, they were telling Iranians that we aren't going to be allowing Americans and the Israelis to use their airspace or land frontiers to open any operations against Iran. Unfortunately for Iran, I think somewhere they took a call, because it's very clear that when their top leadership got knocked off, I think they took a call to start targeting each and every country which is in the region, which is a mistake, because what happens is that the numbers of ballistic missiles, drones, is a fixed number in a short time frame. When a war is going to be executed, even from 1 week to a month's time, one will realize that you are running out of the munitions. So one is that once you're spreading the war and you're fighting all over the place, you are actually maybe hitting some place or other, but the fact is that the efficacy which they could have focused on this thing, Israel or the carrier strike force, has not diminished over a period of, has been spread out. So they've opened too many fronts. The second is, in long term, all these countries which were bearing with Iran, in spite of its nature, the way it was, is actually, while Larijani, who's very, very hardcore, very close to Khamenei, and he's likely to be controlling the affairs today. This is what was reported about 15, 20 days back when Khamenei started handing over his charge. Larijani was one of the primary contenders who was taking over the charge. He may say that for 300 years they have not gone out for wars, but surely sub-conventional war, a war of terror, has been prosecuted, while it is par for the course. I am not saying that Americans have not done it and other countries have not done it. I think everybody is doing it in this region. But Iranians can't just take the pedal off and say they were not part of it. So I think this is something major, but I'll just like to correct a perception. I don't think the Gulf countries have gone into offensive. Right now, each and every action is a defensive maneuver. So anything which is flying over, in fact, that is how 3 aircrafts of Americans F-15s,
yes. We'll be discussing that, in fact, because there's counter views on what could have actually happened over there. Of course, in the official statement, the CENTCOM says that it is, of course, as a result of friendly fire coming in from the Kuwait Defense Forces, and they're regularly in touch with them. We're going to be debating that. Surya Jayanti, former U.S. diplomat and senior fellow of Atlantic Council, also joins us on the panel. But there's some updates coming in. UAE's defense ministry has confirmed that its air defensive successfully intercepted 9 ballistic missiles, 6 cruise missiles and 148 drones. The incidents have resulted in 3 fatalities and 68 minor injuries so far. That's the word coming in from the UAE's Ministry of Defense. Let me quickly bring in fact, the frame coming in from the East Room of the White House as well, where President Trump is part of that defense investiture ceremony. But Lieutenant Colonel Shailendra Singh, in fact, if I can come across to you on this, what are we to make of this? We thought that the numbers perhaps may have come down because they were about 700 to 800 yesterday, as Iran does not seem to have realized the folly or its errors because it continues to pound countries such as UAE.
Jai Hind, Namaskar. We should be very clear what Iran is capable of doing. And within its capability, I'm sure we are not the only wise people. They have also got good strategists. They have got experience on dealing. So they would know where are they heading. If the US estimate of January 25 is to be taken as correct, 3,000 plus missiles which they have, well, they also know it. They would have boosted it by whatever number, another 1,000, 2,000, whatever, but they definitely know. And they also know that what matters is how they can prolong this war. And to prolong this war, they require 2-3 things. One, they require a sustained economy, which is in a bad shape. They are already in a problem. The only reason why they were appearing to be coming on table, or US was able to force them onto table, was the sanctions which they want removed. There is another one is their own army. The capability of that has got degraded over a period of time because their Air Force has been suffering from spare parts problem, maintenance problem, all those kind of things. So they do not have that kind of credible Air Force, which they know that it is 550 aircraft versus more than 13,000 aircrafts, which US has. They also have a problem that the world opinion generally has been against them because Iran has been, fighting a reputation that they are actually being the terrorist mastermind for Houthi, Hamas and Hezbollah. So there is a definite dent on that. Last but not the least is what Sir just now brought out. You are increasing the number of adversaries. I definitely know why he's doing it. He knows that he cannot reach US mainland. So what best he can do is what he had said earlier also. मैं अरब को आग लगा दूंगा, आग में झोंक दूंगा. That was what was said. And that was very clear. US bases will be attacked. There will be attack the way refineries are getting attacked, the way Qatar says that their energy installation, water installation is getting attacked, and that is where you are making enemy.
Now, yes, and we saw Aramco in Saudi Arabia also being attacked today, among several other installations. But there's a quick update coming in. Russian President Vladimir Putin speaks with 4 key leaders of the Persian Gulf states, warning of the danger that the US and Israel attacks on Iran could escalate into a regional conflict. After Putin's conversation with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Kremlin has said that both sides have expressed serious concern about the real risk of the expansion of the conflict zone, which has already affected the territories of a number of Arab countries and is fraught with catastrophic consequences. Let me take this across to Surya Jayanti, who's a former US diplomat. Surya Jayanti, while on the one hand, you have the US and Israel, which are hoping that with the attacks coming in from Iran to several of its neighbors in the Middle East, that they would receive a lot more diplomatic support. But here you see President Putin is clearly reaching out to leaders one by one, including Mohammed bin Salman, who and Saudi Arabia itself is extremely upset with the kind of attacks that it has been at the receiving end of from Iran.
This is obviously a very complicated situation. The number of dynamics at play in the region are huge. You're looking at Sunni versus Shia unrest and competition. You're looking at the Gulf powers versus the Levant versus the Shia world. You're also looking at the role of US bases in the region as the guarantors of the security of the Gulf and of Israel. I think what we're watching is a US miscalculation about what all of those dynamics are. Having been a US diplomat in the Middle East for a very long time, I can safely say that for the most part, the United States does not understand either the Muslim world or the Arab world. And so carving the correct path among these many competing interests and these many competing powers is quite difficult. And I'm not sure the US is doing it successfully. For example, there is an increasing complaint in the Gulf that all of these countries that have been housing US bases in order to have some guarantee of protection are not actually now receiving any protective support from the United States. And they thought they were getting a deal. They would keep the bases, US bases on their territory, and in exchange, if something like this ever happened, that the United States would then protect them. But actually, because the US seems to have somewhat miscalculated Iran's ability to retaliate against the US and Israeli attack on Iran, there doesn't seem to have been a correct allocation of air defense systems and interception technology and equipment. And so the United States appears to have refocused what it has left on protecting Israel instead of protecting its allies in the region, the allies who actually hold its military bases and its military personnel. And so it is a rapidly evolving situation.
All right. And I believe, in fact, we're looking at a situation where President Trump is going to be addressing any moment now. He is approaching the dais. Let's quickly listen into that official announcement. Let's cut in live to what's happening there at the White House. We're expecting President Trump's address any moment now.
Almighty God, your steady hand has guided this republic for nearly 250 years. From its birth in the wilderness to this very hour, we come to you now with grateful hearts. We assemble here today to honor men.
And there's breaking updates coming in. In fact, we'll cut it live once President Trump starts speaking. Now, there is an update coming in. Syed Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, have held a telephone conversation. In this call, China's foreign minister, on behalf of the Chinese government and people, have extended condolences for the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution, during the U.S. and Israeli military aggression against Iran. Iran's foreign minister, while thanking his Chinese counterpart for the message of condolence, has briefed him on the developments in Iran and the region following the military aggression by Israel and the United States against Iran. All right, let me quickly take this right back to our panelists here. Colonel Mahesh Ramchandran, not entirely surprising, we have seen China and Russia come out and support Iran. But now, what is the message that is being sent out with China's engagement with Iran? Are they in any position, for instance, to help out Iran militarily?
Madhav, firstly, in the last 48 hours, two things have clearly gone out of the window. One is that Nobel Peace Prize that people have been talking about, and the other is a so-called rule-based order, world order, which obviously have gone out of the window. Now, China and Russia, so far they have only had a hands-off approach, and frankly, I don't see them actually getting into providing military
I'm sorry I'm
assistance.
interrupting you. Let me cut across live. President Trump is speaking. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Being here, and please feel free to sit. So before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama, that was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, that happened. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out, and they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful by far military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly, after that he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot. But please join me in thanking every American service member who bravely is standing in harm's way. They really are incredible, and I just want to thank you. We have a lot of them right here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We have a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're adding on to the building a little bit. We're improving the building. See that nice drape? When that comes down, right now you see a very, very deep hole. But in about a year and a half from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors, because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold, but I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains, but and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it's because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, will the pile drivers ever stop? You know, they go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here? You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be 400 million or less. Most people say 400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money, so I like it. But my wife isn't thrilled. She said, this is getting crazy. I said, don't worry about it. We'll be all finished up in a few months. But now for the reason that we're gathered this morning to recognize the unsurpassed courage of 3 really incredible American heroes, 1 living and 2 no longer with us. So together, we recognize the exceptional valor of Master Sergeant Roderick Edmonds. And maybe I could ask your families to stand because they're beautiful families. I got to meet them, and please. So Staff Sergeant Michael Ollis and Command Sergeant Major Terry Richardson, as they receive our nation's highest military award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. And we're pleased to be joined by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's busy, very busy guy. In fact, I said, if you want, Pete, you can avoid it. General Raisin Kane also, and they said, we don't avoid this one. This is one you wouldn't avoid for anything, right? So we appreciate that you're here. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, who's doing an incredible job, Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins. Doug, thank you. You stand up, Doug. You're doing such a good job. 92% approval rating. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, who's known as Raisin Kane. I liked him when I heard that name, Raisin Kane. I said, if it's true, you're my guy. And it's true. It just turned out it's very true. He's a great guy and a great general. Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, and Army Chief of Staff, Randy George. Thank you. Thank you both, Dan. As well as Senators Tom Cotton and Bill Hagerty. You guys were great on television this weekend. I'll tell you what, can't have a better representative than both of you. Thank you very much. And Representatives Tim Burchett, Jack Bergman, and Nicole Malliotakis. And we have a few others sitting here, but I'm not going to go through it because we have far more important people to honor today. Oh, we have Tom Homan. I got to at least mention Tom Homan. I would be a stand-up, Tom. What a job. Zero people coming in. We had millions and millions of people pouring into our country now. I'm not even sure I can believe this number is 0, but it is given out by Democrats. Democrats from the last, and they're rated for the last 9 months. We had 0 people come illegally through our border. Right, Tom? So I want to thank you very much. And I also want to salute 6 former Medal of Honor recipients: William Swenson, Jim McLuhan, Walter Marm, Thomas Paine, Sammy Davis. That's an interesting guy. Where is Sammy Davis? We have a big story here, Sammy. You've heard that all your life, I'll bet, huh? And Edward Byers. Stand up, please. You all look good. We all look good. We remember the ceremonies. All great. It's a great honor. There's no greater. I tried for myself. I've tried numerous times to get one by myself. I keep getting shut down. They say, you can't do it, sir. Bad protocol. Very bad. I would say the worst. But I'm only kidding. You don't have to say I'm only kidding, otherwise the press will come out with it, which they actually did once. Donald Trump wants a Congressional Medal of Honor, but he's been shut down. But now you are brave, amazing people, and I want to thank you all. In 1941, Roddy Edmonds of Knoxville, Tennessee, enlisted in the U.S. Army and soon rose to one of the youngest master sergeants in the military. In 1944, he sailed to Europe to fight in World War II, and he was so enthusiastic and young and full of vim.
All right, President Trump there, in fact, addressing that function. It is, of course, an award ceremony, investiture ceremony is what we understand there in the East Room of the White House. But, you know, let me bring in for a quick round of comments our panelists over here. Lieutenant General Pandey, what do you make of President Trump's comments? He's, of course, reiterated the fact that Iran was close to having a nuclear weapon, that it is not going to be on that path, and has said that it is, of course, because of mistakes made in the past by the U.S. itself that allowed for Iran to go, you know, down that particular road, and continuing to say that the U.S. is going to be continuing to engage in combat. What are you gleaning from what President Trump has just said?
So while I may not agree with Trump in so many things, but one thing what he's saying is very sure, that it is the U.S. administration which allowed the Iranians to go and to invest into the nuclear capabilities, and I was saying way back about 55, 60 years back. And along the way, while Ayatollah Khomeini and thereafter Khomeini, both had said as much clearly that nuclear weapons is their agenda, they will get it, and destruction of Israel is their second most important agenda. Right? These strategic orientation has never changed. There were a number of times, there were opportunities which came about in 2000s, and even in last decade, where this entire posture of Iran could have been changed, either through military muscle or through diplomacy. But somehow, I guess, Americans got involved in Iraq war. They got involved in the Syrian skirmish. They also got involved into Afghanistan issue. And thereafter, when they realized that they have really spent their force, they started controlling and getting together. And they missed out number of opportunities at the level of diplomacy, so they kept on using this whole system of sanctions, thinking that sanctions work. Sanctions don't work eventually. Eventually, either the muscle power works or diplomacy works. If you look at sanctions, with loads of sanctions, where is North Korea? They still are nuclear power. They got ballistic missile systems. You just can't dissuade a sovereign nation to achieve what they want to achieve through sanctions. So eventually, I think what he makes a statement. Now, coming to this immediate part, the challenge was with 440 kgs of uranium, in spite of 12 days of lion rise and night of midnight hammer. That point of time also I had speculated enough that they have been able to push the Iranian program by about few months. And if you exactly look at it, about 6 months odd. Because firstly, the tunneled labs were totally not destroyed. They were partially hit. Because even the bunker busters, which had the capacity with one-on-one following through each other, had the capacity of reaching about 250.
There are some reports that it is the nuclear sites that have been hit once again in this round.
So that's okay. But the fact remains that they got 440 nuclear uranium enriched with about 60% enrichment there. So they are just months away. While weaponizing may take time, but the fact is that they were very close to having a nuclear bomb for themselves. So I think there came a time that they had to take a call, and they could not have been better. And I may be, it may look a silly point, but I think everybody is going to blame Sinwar. What he did in 7th October to start this whole process to reach out to Iran today. And I think there could not have been a better opportunity for, because, you know, talks have been going on. Every time they've hedged, they've said, okay, we'll allow IAEA inspections, and thereafter continue with the path of enriching uranium.
Let me bring in fact, Surya Jayanti. Surya Jayanti, is it my imagination? Or did President Trump, you know, not have his usual, you know, very boisterous sort of style when he was addressing that particular function? Was it perhaps a long night in the Situation Room or something else?
I can't speculate exactly what's going on in the Situation Room, but judging from some of the multitude of comments coming out from different U.S. government officials, it appears increasingly that the United States didn't have a particularly well-defined goal in attacking Iran. There have been a lot of darts thrown at the map in an effort to make some justification stick. And so I think what we're seeing is they are adjusting their rhetoric to the developing events. And at that particular occasion, of course, President Trump is addressing the families of people who have died in action. And so I think he was somber for that reason, because this is going to involve considerable political blowback in the United States, where approximately only 1 in 4, 25% of Americans support the US going to war against Iran.
Right, that's actually an important point. And let me bring in Colonel Mahesh Ramchandran on that point. The fact is that you look at not just the F-15s, the US has officially confirmed at least 4 casualties. So it hasn't been a very great second day if you look at it from the US's perspective. And I believe, some of the fleet have also been impacted in Bahrain.
You're absolutely right. These downing of these aircraft, the last thing that I would like to believe is that they were downed by friendly fire. These are F-15. These are not some archaic MiG-21, those aircraft. They are fitted with the state-of-art IFF system. They have the latest electronic warfare suits. So I don't believe that they went down by friendly fire, because if they've gone down by friendly fire, then then US doesn't need enemies with friends like this. That's one. So let's face it. Definitely, this is war. And on day 2, if these aircraft have gone down, then it is a big win for Iran. And this is on the back of their claiming that they have attacked the office of Netanyahu in Israel. So, but again, these are claims and counterclaims. So we really don't know what is actually, what is actually happening on ground.
This is why it is so critical that the Middle East is stabilized at the earliest, not just, of course, in terms of obviously the lives and the property that is going to be impacted, but because of the huge economic repercussions that any such strikes in this region will have across the world.
100% the whole world gets affected. There is no denial of that. Why I'm trying to say it is not only Strait of Hormuz which we are looking at. There are other things of it. Because when Strait of Hormuz, anything happens, not that it cannot be avoided. It can be avoided. You take a circuitous route, but it's going to cost you much more on the insurance, much more on the travel, and every damn thing it goes up. And that is where the whole world definitely gets accepted. You please allow me this aircraft downing. I'll take 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Firstly, if it is a friendly fire, which is strategically correct for US to say, so that at least the credit and the moral credit doesn't go to Iran. It doesn't get passed on to Iran. But more important is what Kuwait had said. Kuwait didn't say 2 or 3 or 4. They said many. So I wonder, what we can see is only one. Whether it was 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. I actually don't know. And above all, I don't think if there is a friendly fire which has brought it down, I think there would have been a very responsible regret or whatever from the Kuwait authorities. If the Kuwait can say this, that yes, we saw many more. The whole question of declaration started with this one aircraft, which we can see right now. When the Kuwaitis came out with that official statement, many more, many aircrafts have been brought down. That is how the whole world came to know that this is not one, it is many more. And then probably US did the damage control. Most important, what the US president was addressing, I'll take only 10 seconds on that. Mistake on past. Why are you telling us it was your mistake? You deal with it. Missile program is for reaching US. Oh my God, you are realizing now. Today you are realizing it is for US. Then what is Israel doing? Overseas station and bases, it was by your choice. You were doing that dadagiri all around. You were doing dadagiri all around under the pretext that you are giving security. Nuclear weapons are against the world. Wow, I like that. Anything which goes against Europe or against US, then it becomes a world problem. Otherwise, it is individual's problem.
Okay. Let me quickly bring in General Pandey on the point that you made as far as these aircraft are concerned. General Pandey, one can understand the possibility of one aircraft being hit by friendly fire, but it's not 1 but 3 that's being claimed. And also at a time where apparently they were engaged in some kind of combat or some kind of maneuvers with Iranian aircraft. What do you make of the statement that's officially coming from the United States?
So I think, you see, what happens is that when we sit in the media rooms, we expect very quick answers to what has happened on the field. And I'm being candid because you can just quickly relate to what was happening with India-Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. We wanted immediate answers, which are unlikely to come, because when I was on a channel, when I saw this thing happening, it just the first releases were coming out. It was very clear that this has not been hit by a missile. For a layman, a non-Air Force person can clearly see, and the way it is coming down shows there is some other aspect which has affected the aircraft. It may not be a hit, it may be something much more which has happened. It could be, but surely not an Iranian aircraft which has downed it, or an Iranian system. So either it is a Kuwaiti problem or some malfunctions taken place.
Okay.
There's something much more to it which eventually will come out. But the fact remains that let's be consistent about it, that wars are not one-sided. Howsoever powerful an enemy is, there will be consequences on the side of the powerful as well. And Iran is not a weak enemy. It is not Venezuela. It is the 14th or 15th military power, which is a professional organization. It is going to fight back. Americans are not fighting with their entire might into that zone. They have just, please remember, when Iraq war happened, they had the 6th Carrier Strike Force there. There were boots on ground. There was a period of nearly a month long, one of the longest period to put down the entire Iraqi force.
Yeah, and it's clearly, of course, the experience of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's why US is today saying that they're not going to have boots on ground. But then, will they be able to achieve their objectives? And what really are those objectives, which Pete Hegseth coming out to say that it's not regime change? Really, of course, as one of our panelists, Surya, was just pointing out, what really is the objective? That's something that's not very clear at the moment. Nevertheless, the fighting is only going to continue. We, of course, hope that peace prevails at the earliest. Colonel Shailendra Singh, Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, Colonel Mahesh Ramchandran, Surya Jayanti, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening.